Welcome, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for this month's Talks and Takes show. We've got some great headlines to share with you today in the same format that we've been using for the past several months. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention one of the biggest headlines that was announced yesterday, in case you missed it, and that is the IHRSA International Convention and Trade Show is moving from LA in September to Dallas, Texas, October 13, 14, and 15. So we've been getting a great response to that. Seems like everybody's excited about that. Dallas happens to be near my hometown, so I look forward to hosting all of you as well. So without anything further about that, we're going to jump right in because we're on a schedule and we've got to cover a lot of topics in a short period of time. Mr. McBride, I believe you're up first about price optimization.
Absolutely, Brent. Thank you. Now, did I just hear correctly that we're going to all have dinner at your house?
That's what I heard.
Yes, the three of you. Yes, all of us.
I mean, I'm talking about the whole IHRSA family, the whole membership and partners and suppliers and the whole deal, right? We're all going to the ranch and you're going to barbecue for us. Is that what I'm hearing?
We could do that, but the ranch isn't anywhere close to downtown Dallas. So that'd be tough.
Well, hey, there's a lot of talk right now about price optimization out there. And so I wanted to look at this thing from kind of what other industries are doing, hospitality, airlines, the whole bit. And it was kind of interesting because it's all over the map. But a lot of operators in our Rex group have been talking about dues increases. And Blair and I have had many conversations about pricing. Do we charge more for exclusive access to special areas in the facility that have more space? Do we charge more now that we're adding all these other features, virtual, and do we bake that into the membership and the outdoor spaces? Do we add, revenue based on those things? And what I'm hearing right now from most operators is that ancillary revenue has not bounced back yet to where it was. But when I always look at pricing, and Brother Buseman, Rick Buseman's father, was one of those in the industry that founded the industry that always talked about, raise them early, raise them often, raise every year, do a dues increase every year religiously. And there's something to be said for that. When you do an assessment, which many clubs do, a price assessment, a capital expense assessment, a one-time fee, the problem with that is you get a one-time fee. And when you do let's say you did a $25 assessment, you get $25 one time. So you get a little more than $2 a month one time. If you do a $2 increase, you get $2 increase, incremental, exponential over the lifetime value of the membership. So you get that money year over year based on a subscription model. So I've always been a proponent that $2 increases are better than $25 assessments because of the exponential nature of the growth. But a lot of operators are looking at price optimization right now. And it's an interesting category because it is one of the few levers on the revenue side that an operator has. If you have 3,000 members and you raise them $500, you've increased $15,000 a month to your bottom line right there. And if you're losing $10,000 a month, that's a huge lever, assuming you have no attrition. So I took a look at what other industries were doing. And most of the hotels, most of the airlines, I'm not sure the cruise industry is there yet. Didn't find much data on that. But according to Deloitte, according to McKinsey, according to MarketWatch, most of these guys are all increasing their rates. And it's going up about 6% a month. Beginning March of this year, through 2021 is the prediction. So a couple things that people are watching out for. Don't take advantage of your customers. Don't gouge them when they're down. Be transparent. Don't rely on old sensitivity analysis on pricing. Don't discount. Whatever you do, don't discount right now. You may not be ready to raise, but avoid the discounting. So, I don't have a lot here, but there's a there. When you look at your reinvention, when you look at what you're doing, not only do you not want to necessarily innovate for the moonshot, you want to innovate the small things. But other industries in the hospitality service sectors are going up, and it might be a matter of timing, but you might want to be preparing for what you're going to do to price optimize. In some cases, that may be lowering price based on a volume play, but that would be a remodeling and a re-engineering. And common wisdom right now is, or common thinking right now is, be careful of discounting. Be careful of the blatant discount. So I'd like to hear what my colleagues think about this, because I think it's a fascinating topic and a big lever.
So I can tell you that a lot of the customers at MXM that we work with are experimenting, especially the larger ones, are experimenting with price increases. Now, they're not in the category, I would not put them in the category of HVLP, but there are larger players that are maybe mid to higher end that are almost every one of them experimenting with price increases. It seems to me that we have all of the basic elements of supply and demand in play here that would warrant the type of pricing of maybe increasing limited capacity. There may be a lot more demand than we think there is out there, and the elements are there for us to think more of the number of memberships you have as a limited inventory, and we haven't done that before.
Yeah, that's right.
But I've seen quite a difference with the hotel industry. I have to disagree with you, Bill. The prices, if you're comparing the prices from March and April, of course, the prices for hotels are going up. But they're actually at a nice premium low here for hotels. So I don't see them increasing the hotel prices.
Well, Sara, I would expect nothing less than you.
Then I disagree with you.
Absolutely nothing less. But again,
All right, so let me go on to we got to move on to the next.
Well, it depends on where you're going, and it depends on the airline carrier's capacity.
Yeah. So this was groundbreaking research, in my opinion, for our industry. It's such a positive message about the effect of being physically active related to COVID. So Dr. Robert Salas is on IHRSA's newly formed Medical Science and Health Advisory Council. He actually authored this study. And I'll give you just a few of the highlights, overview real quick. The main message is this: you're at an increased risk of hospitalization, being admitted to the intensive care unit, and death based on these three risk factors. The worst risk factor, the number one predictor of you going down that path, is having an organ transplant. That's pretty serious. The second most predictive of you going down that path is that you're at an advanced age, and they qualify that as someone over 60, more likely over 60 with some pre-existing conditions. The third risk factor that predicts you going down that path is physical inactivity. And that's compared to all other types of things like diabetes, smoking, and other things. So at IHRSA, we create a video as well to kind of reinforce this thought, which I'll share with you real quick. So this video is available. We'll put it in the chat. Any of you watching are welcome to take this and share it with your staff, of course, but you're also welcome to share it with your members. It's a great message to reinforce the importance of being physically active. And I know all of you on the panel with me here are big believers in this. Anybody want to comment on this study and what it means to our industry?
One of the things I noticed about the study that I really liked is just the conditions that were there for them to be able to do the study. Because at Kaiser, they had been collecting exercise data on their patients. That tells you something about how they're thinking. They had been collecting exercise data during a physician visit, so they didn't have to have somebody self-report at that time and then backfill that data. They had that in their system. They knew if you were exercising 150 minutes or more, or if you were sedentary. So that tells you something about how they're thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a third party. Wasn't produced by us. It's produced by Dr. Bob Salas and Kaiser Permanente, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Sarah?
Yeah, what I was going to say is that 150 minutes, that's taken directly from the American College of Sports Medicine. We need to be doing 150 minutes of exercise every week. And this standard is wonderful. And Blair, you're right. It's like, how can the physicians know this? The medical industry knows how important fitness is. And it's wonderful that they included it into the research. How do we get it publicized more? And somebody in the chat box says this is a great video. We want a copy of it. And everybody should be reposting this on their social media, sending it in their e-newsletters to their memberships. So I'm sure IHRSA will make this available to you guys.
Yeah, of course. Well, exactly. That's a great point, Sarah. It's like, it's really frustrating. Have you heard any physician, any talking head on a talk show talk about related to COVID, you need to be more physically active? Never.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Dr. Fauci, I don't think I've ever heard him mention a single word about being more physically active.
Right.
All about getting shots in arms, and that's sort of the cure-all. But there's a longer term play here that people need to appreciate.
It does make me wonder too on that. They stopped at 150 minutes. I got almost 150 minutes this morning. So what I'm wondering is, I do wonder, like what is the next level, and how much of a drop off is there if it's 300 minutes a week?
There was a great study by the Cooper Institute who looked at that, and they said if you have a low level of physical fitness, a moderate level, or a high intensity of physical fitness, there was virtually no difference between a moderate level of physical activity and an extreme level. So the difference is inconsequential. It's just the inactivity that's such a predictor of mortality.
Like anything, diminishing return curves. Yep.
Yeah. So that's a great segue, Sarah. You have the next topic about the COVID vaccine and how important that is.
And there's a great video. I know Caitlin's going to play it for us. My wonderful staff, actually, Mike Lieber creates these great videos, which I really like. And I got very motivated by this. My oldest son is getting his PhD this June in bioinformatics, and he studies RNA and vaccines and virus transmissions. So of course, I'm really passionate about this. Here we go. There's my card. Everybody doesn't care, but I care. And I started thinking, oh my gosh, can I require my staff to do this? And you are legally able to require your staff to get vaccinated. It's completely legal. Is it legal to require your members to get vaccinated? Yes. It's like no shirt, no service, no vaccine, no card, you can't come in. This is okay to do, but do we make this it becomes political. And I think I was telling you, Brent, I was talking to one of our sponsors, and I just basically stepped in it, which I know is a surprise to all of you, by making a joke and saying, yeah, I'm going to require everybody get vaccinated at our show. And I'm not going to do that. But it really offended somebody. So we have to look at, is this a business decision? Is it political? Is it moral? Our patrons are extremely valuable, and they're diverse, not only in their personal lives, but they're diverse in their political aspirations. My goal is basically stick with what the government tells us we can do, look at what's going on in our community, look what's going on in the requirements in our counties, adhere to them, and see what happens. And what do you guys think?
Well, there's quite a few businesses out there that are incentivizing people to get vaccines, right? And sometimes not the best. Krispy Kreme will give you a free donut if you show your vaccine card to them. And I saw on the news just last night, actually, that if you're in Washington, D.C., there's people handing out marijuana. If you'll show up at their table, street side, and show your vaccine card, then they're giving you a little bit of marijuana to take with you on your way.
Good Lord. This is certainly a larger problem for larger metropolitan areas. It's certainly a larger problem for companies that have more locations across, multiple states. It becomes less of a problem, I think with smaller operations. It becomes less of a problem. I do want to, during the height of this pandemic, we, along with a lot of others, started collecting what we called visits to virus ratio. People remember that. So I do want to point out how an outlier it is for outbreaks to ever happen in fitness if you're following simple guidelines, right? Air turnover rates, we measure carbon dioxide, et cetera. So without any of this, right, with no vaccines out there, we maintained it extremely low. So I feel like as vaccines roll out, that there's a ramp down of mask usage, and hopefully this is in our rearview mirror very soon.
And first of all, I have to tell you, Brent, it's never called marijuana. My kids correct me all the time. It's called weed. If you want to be cool, which I know that's your ultimate desire, it's called weed. But I also look at, if we're gonna take a stand, if we're gonna put something out there, it's a good idea to have some type of signage, because then people in the facility can read it, our staff can support it, and it's kind of documented as such.
Yeah, very good. So, Bill, do you want to say something?
Yeah, my doctor, he requires his staff that he goes, you're going to be wearing masks forever if you don't get vaccinated. And he does the same thing with flu season, so if you don't want the flu shot and you work in his office or his practice, you're going to be wearing a mask forever. So he simply, makes them wear their mask everywhere they go throughout the day if they don't get those shots, So we're heavily encouraging on our side. And Sara, thanks for including the active messaging there.
Yeah, well, it's good there's other places those people can go work besides that doctor, I guess.
You can always go
So on to the proof of the vaccine.
I kind of like it.
Yeah, so this is our good friend for all of us on the call and colleague, Chuck Runyon, who's also the CEO of Lyft Brands, and he was interviewed on Fox News recently and had a great message and handled it very well.
To create a very safe environment for our members around the world to work on their physical and mental well-being. And short term, we are believers in the vaccine. I think we need to do that to protect us for COVID-19. But I think we're missing a bigger point, which is the long-term vaccine from proper nutrition and exercise, and which will protect us against not only future pandemics, but the real root causes of American health, which is, type 2 diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease. Those are issues that we really need a vaccine for. So short term, yes. Long term, we got to get this country healthy again.
Still, if I enter your gym or others enter, and there's no proof that we've been vaccinated, or for that matter, that we're testing negative for the virus at the moment, I understand that can change. How could people feel safe in an environment where maybe the guy in the next weight circuit does have it?
Across the industry, we have masks in place through many of the states. We're following social distancing guidelines.
Yeah, so we couldn't show you the whole video. We'll put that in the chat as well if you want to have a look at it. It's too long to show the whole thing, but he made some really good points, and I'll just highlight two of them. One of which is, regardless of where your local agencies are related to mandating, requiring mask and physical distancing and the other measures that we've all put in place, it still may very well be the best idea to continue that. Many clubs are adopting IHRSA's active and safe guidelines so that there's sort of a consistency around how clubs are handling that. Sara, by the way, and Bill both helped develop those standards and are heavily promoting those across the world, in fact. And then secondly, the other message that Chuck shared very well was the fact that we just need to continue letting people know if you're active and you maintain a healthy lifestyle, you're at much lower risk.
Yeah, I loved his take on the long-term vaccine is really nutrition and exercise. The other thing I want to call out about that whole piece, just what a great job he did representing our industry. You'll notice he didn't say Anytime Fitness. He said our industry across, I mean, he spoke, without, being prompted or anything. He spoke on behalf of the industry. I just want to hand it to him for what a great ambassador for us out there.
He always has been. He was on the IHRSA board of directors when Brent and I were serving together on the board. And Chuck Runyon is a class act.
And I like the way he talked about the long-term vaccine. I think this is the first time in world history that, because of this, the airline industry, that the whole world has been infected almost at the same time with the virus. And so the awareness of the positive impacts of exercise, I think, is at least getting some recognition worldwide, which I think is great. I do worry, I think we've talked about the masks. I wonder when we're going to be able to take them off. Like I mentioned the other day, I walked into a salon and I had left my mask in the car, and I was talking to this woman, and I'm fully vaccinated. She was fully vaccinated. We didn't have our masks on. And then we looked around and went, oh my God. And I ran out to the SUV and whipped my mask, on immediately. How is our industry going to adjust to that?
Andrea has a great question on here about HIPAA, right? I mean, why is it not a HIPAA violation to ask somebody if they've been vaccinated? Because, it was interesting, like in North Carolina during the lockdown, they had this rule that said, if you say that you have a prescription to exercise, then you can go in, and they use that as a way to open gyms, except it was against HIPAA laws to ask if they had a prescription to exercise, right? That's how I understood what was happening in North Carolina and how people opened up. So I don't, yeah.
And somebody else wrote in the chat box, they said, but we started this incentive to get people to get vaccinated, and we gave them a free personal training session, but the HR department, the human resources department, said they couldn't do it. I don't think that was a legal, I think that was a business decision that possibly they made that. So I think HIPAA and HR, it all feeds in here.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. And that's a good lead in, Blair. You've got the next topic of discussion there, the state level legislation. We've been talking about the GYMS Act, and I wanted you to give everybody a little bit of an update on that, but it's also about the state, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So HR 890, the GYMS Act, a couple of data points here. We're at 91 co-sponsors. At last talks and takes, we were at 62. So, anybody would take that kind of growth. We have to keep going. The target is 200 co-sponsors. Kind of interesting to note that the number of Republicans is stuck at 16. And since the stimulus bill got pushed through under reconciliation, the conversations I've had with Republican representatives in our state, they don't want to sign on to anything that's promising any more money, even if they feel like we kind of got left behind. So that's what's happening with HR 890. There are 22 states that have 0 co-sponsors. And I think that's important to go into the quorum, and we'll put they got it up there already, the dashboard for that, and go in and look at your state and see what you can do onward. So a lot of the effort there was about, getting your U.S. representatives to co-sponsor. One of the things you have to be on top of is your more local legislation. And as we look at this map, this is about things happening within states. I want to call out that there have been from IHRSA 38 alerts on legislation around contracts. There's been 15 alerts on legislation around how you can use biometric data. So now this is what's happening in your own states. By the way, there are some good things happening in our state here in Washington. I've testified several times now to make sure that gyms do not have an increase in their unemployment insurance rate. And so what's happened, and the way they did that is they stratified it based on who was impacted the most. So some of the businesses that are getting the most benefit on that right now in the state of Washington are those in the fitness business. Now, we have an alliance, we have a lobbyist, we have somebody that alerts us as to things that are happening and the things we need to speak up on in our state. You might not have an alliance in your state, you might, but even if you do, I think we need to train our industry to respond to this. And I guess that's a question I would pose to the panel here is what do people do locally? Like what can they start to do more to make sure that they're out in front of local legislation, state level legislation, and they can help influence it?
Well, I'll take that first because, of course, IHRSA has a great history of fighting battles for the states on the state level. I kind of looked back to do a little research. Over the last 3 years, we fought 58 battles on harmful legislation state by state, and we've only lost 2 of those contests. So we won 56 and we've lost 2 over the last 3 years at IHRSA. So we've got quite the record. So the first thing I would say is make sure you're connected in with IHRSA. IHRSA has a dedicated staff that is tracking all these bills. They're putting out the alerts. If you don't know what to do or who to contact, just reach back out to IHRSA and ask them, what do I do? I saw the information, I want to help, and they'll put you in contact with the right people in your local area to make a difference. That's what I would say.
I also, sorry.
No, go ahead, Sara.
I also think it's important that people think that the Gyms Act is only for, the owners, the managers, the directors. This is for the instructors. This is for the trainers. This is for your members. This is for your members. So if we can expand who's reaching out and connecting in with our representatives, this is going to get more of a swell of attention that it deserves. And it's the members that they really listen to more than the owners, because we're self-interested. We want our gyms open. We want the grants. That's what we want. But if they hear it from the public, so it's up to us as gym owners and trainers and teachers, et cetera, to push that link, which thank you, either Mark or Tom or Caitlin, and put in the chat box. Thank you for that. And click on it and voice your opinion. Because otherwise, without the public's interest, the government's not going to respond.
Yeah, and if I could just real quick insert for the audience, if you're not sure or you haven't gotten the alerts, again, IHRSA has a sort of a spreadsheet state by state that'll tell you where they are on these different categories and if there's something you should be giving your attention to.
And then I'll add to Maria from Canada. I don't know. The question is, what about Canada? Who do we reach out to? And I honestly don't know. I had to do my own civics lesson to figure it out here. And I will add this, what people can do here is learn learn your congressional districts, but learn your legislative district. Your legislative district are your state representatives and your state senator. Learn that. Reach out to their office and start a dialogue with them about anything so that you get to know them, so that they have your contact information, because they will reach out to you when they know you're a constituent. That's been very effective for us. And then when something comes up and you get an alert, then you can reach out to that in your legislative district and say, hey, I'm an employer here and here's how I feel about it. If there's one thing I'd encourage you to do, it'd be that. Learn for the state level stuff, your legislative district, and who your representative senator are.
And I would also recommend for Canada, canfitpro.com. Canfitpro.com. They've got a great business section as well. I'm sure they're aware of what's going on in Canada.
And the trade association, our sister in Canada, is the Fitness Industry Canada, FIC. They, I'm sure, are tracking it as well. So, Mr. McBride, you're up again on the social fitness app. What a great marriage for you. I know you love these late night, online virtual meetups, hookups, whatever y'all are calling them, team ups.
Don't call it that. You're mute.
We call it the fitness business family with our regular Thursday night crew. We started a happy hour in March of 2020, and this thing's been going every week or every other week since then, with the core group of about 12 to 15 people, and sometimes as many as 20, 25 people. But what I wanted to talk about today is just an interesting learning and trend that's come out of this whole thing. We talk about virtual, and Blair and I were on a panel, yesterday, and talked about over-indexing, virtual capabilities with virtual programming. We might have over-indexed that as an industry. We might have gone a little too far with what we predicted with regard to how much that's going to be adopted when we get back to real life and real live events. But what I've learned from a staff and a member perspective, and now what you're seeing, and Sara can opine about this a little bit as well, there's all these social apps, people that like paleontology, people that like World War II history, people that like American history. They're all finding each other. And there's even an app where if you've sat next to somebody on a plane, the kind of conversation you might have if you found something in common, putting people together like that, like just discussing things. But what I wanted to hit on today is the power of virtual in reducing barriers for people to not be inhibited. I've made so many friendships and connections with our group on Thursday nights that I have known some of these folks for years in passing at trade shows and seeing them once a year at the industry events at IHRSA, but haven't had deep relationships with them. You go to a happy hour, you're bouncing around pods of people, but we're all in one spot. We're all sharing things. There's a theme and a mechanism to it. And we've become really, really close friends, and actually closer than we would have been without virtual. And I've always struggled with, how do I connect with my group fitness instructors? How do I connect with my part-time trainers? Getting them to come in on a Sunday night for an all-staff meeting is very difficult. We now have a tool with the virtual to connect with staff like we never have before, to put like-minded members together for small group training, conversation, for lunch and learns, for different formats of sharing and putting people together to connect in a different way. And in a lot of ways, it's a deeper way than you can do even live, because you're kind of in control, you're behind a screen, there's a certain protection and privacy to it. So what I wanted to just hit on today and get some feedback from the panel is not underestimating the power of virtual for productivity and relationship enhancement, putting aside virtual programming. I'm talking about connection. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think I mean, just as I'm listening to you just kind of lay that out, right? I mean, to me, like, the most powerful usage of that tool is, the conversation with teams. Just being able to have those more frequent conversations with teams, and just kind of keeping people well connected. And to me, that is maybe one of the highest value pieces that's going to come out of this for me, and for how we run our clubs, and frankly, how we run MXM. So I'm not sure about all the streaming and everything, but as far as social fitness, I did see on the news the other night, there are these apps that are workspaces, and people are just all on the screen, and they're just working quietly, but they have a work coach, and they're from, they're from 12 different verticals, and they have some project they got to work on, but they all comment that, I'm being on here and seeing you guys work is motivating me to not be distracted while I'm working in my home, which I think is what was the very purpose of those workspace apps.
And I think they modeled that after a lot of the buildings in New York City that had individual almost pods for office space. So people just wouldn't, be working out of their homes. And this happened way before the pandemic. So I think they were kind of mirroring it. I got really inspired what Active Wellness did with Bill. But I was like, how do you run these parties? Like, I guess Bill is this great motivator. I've gone on birthday parties and I kind of sit there and everybody's got cute little drinks that were mailed to them and these matching straws with a big face of the person whose birthday it was. And it was so freaking awkward. Okay. So I'm sorry. It was weird. And when Bill was talking about how these team meetups work, I'm like, how does he manage this?
It's highly casual.
Well, one of the things is you got to have a kind of a theme, and you got to include everybody, and you can't, and you got to keep the conversation going. So we do happy hours. We started a happy hour with the Active Wellness team. That's optional for team members to play in, and we also do some virtual stuff with other meetings with Active. But you got to make it fun, and you got to kind of keep it going.
Great.
Sara, you touched a little bit on working and how that kind of relates to working more effectively, and that's your next topic.
Right. I'm just going to keep talking through this video and how will remote work affect our gyms, because we're going to continue to working remotely. Before the pandemic, 5 to 6% were remote. Now it's 15 to 20% remote. Construction industry suffered. The transportation industry suffered. The gym locations that are going to flourish are the ones in residential areas because these cities have been shut down. So like we're going to try to come back with a vengeance, this revenge purchasing, and the judiciary suffered greatly. Churches suffered. Bars suffered because they were all closed. And of course, our own fitness industry suffered. How are we going to spring back? It's like people are craving strength training. It's very important. And real estate has really affected our gyms because it seems like the congestion of the cities, 16,000 apartments in New York, almost triple the amount, are actually are empty right now. And what's going to happen with the in-home fitness equipment is it going to replace our gym memberships? And of course, I am always looking at women and how they're going to be affected by the pandemic. And will this remote, work continue? And hello, yeah, it's going to continue. So if we look at all this remote work and how it's really going to continue to affect us, we've got to think about these women. We've got to think about Blacks and Hispanics that typically sometimes are making less money because they're customer facing, and we had no facing. Okay, we were all wearing masks and isolated in our homes. So we're really concerned about this. How many people are going to go back to our gyms? What's going to happen because of the real estate? Real estate may be to our benefit because we may, all this commercial real estate, Bill and Blair, you're nodding here. This commercial real estate, it's closing down. People are working more and more remotely. Yeah, snap it up. Let's open some more gyms.
Well, and also there's another impact, and I noticed a note just came in, Loft Audio. I don't know if that's global out there or just one person that just posted that. So I was talking to a realtor a few nights ago, and have a nephew who's moving back into Wenatchee, and a house came up for sale for, I think, $574,000. It was gone in 24 hours. There were 10 offers on it. It sold for $104,000 over the asking price. Here's the key. 9 of the 10 offers were from outside of Wenatchee and were from the Seattle area. Now, keep in mind, it's a 2.5-hour drive over the Cascade Mountains to get here. And so there is, for me, that presents opportunity, right? I mean, that's telling me that the people that can work remotely are people that have probably been able to work, they worked throughout the pandemic. They saved money because they weren't going out to lunch, they weren't going out to dinner, and they weren't commuting. And so there are those opportunities. And I think in more rural areas, when you just look at what's happening with your housing market, you may have a huge opportunity for the people that are relocating that are going to work remotely. That's one way it's going to impact clubs.
Yeah, I think another is, many of us in the industry have like to refer to our clubs or promote them as the third place, right? Where people spend most of their time. You had home, you had work, and then you had some other third place for many of those people, it was our own clubs and gyms. Now with people working from home, we kind of moved up the ladder rung to be this more second place, because people do miss that sense of community, socialization in person. And that's the vibe and the energy that we're able to provide through the clubs. And as people begin to not only live at home, but also work at home, they're really going to be looking for that experience with other people.
Yeah, and they're looking for that place where they can dedicate and really get their fitness done, because the kid can run downstairs, the dog's running downstairs, my cell phone's ringing, my watch is making some type of noise, and I get interrupted and I just get distracted. So I truly believe that there will be some revenge shopping, that people will keep their in-home fitness equipment, but still also be able to go have that extra pocket money to go back to the gym.
Important to look at any public data, publicly traded companies, if you can chime in and see how some of those companies, what their retention rates are on their product. By the way, there are ways that you can market directly to people that may be prescribing to Peloton, and you can maybe piggyback on the fact that they're doing exercise. And it's not like you're, saying drop your Peloton, but it's saying we would be a great way to augment your Peloton membership would be to come in and give a discount to people that have a Peloton membership.
Yeah, and you can do it with or without Peloton's approval.
Absolutely. You don't need their approval. All right. Roaring 20s of fitness. Play the reel. Okay, so I had to play this as we start talking about the Roaring 20s. This just opened in downtown LA. It's called John Reed Fitness. Please go to their website and roll through their website. So I'm fairly fascinated about what they did. And I need to point out that they didn't do this because of the pandemic. This has been in development for a long time. So the Roaring 20s was a huge bounce back from the Spanish flu and World War I, right? And so there'd been all this deferred spending, and everybody sort of surprised, and it just blew up and everybody let go. And there was a lot of revenge spending, as they call it. That revenge spending is when you feel like you've been deprived of something, and so then you go spend on it. Okay, here's why I want to bring up John Reed. I don't think we've ever made fitness and exercise feel decadent, right? We think of decadence as more like the massage and maybe the recuperation stuff, but we've never. They are making it a point, and maybe their timing is perfect, and this is going to wash over them, and this is going to be wildly successful. Now, don't go in there and look at it and say, oh, that isn't for me. Go there and look at it and say, if I thought about the same design principles and the thoughtfulness that went into this brand for my psychographic or my demographic, what would that look like? So I think there's, by the way, the second half of the 20s is known as the golden 20s. It's known as the golden 20s because the first half of the 20s created so much wealth. So I just want to think of this specific to our fitness industry. Here's a stat. Americans have $3.9 trillion in savings. By November of 2020, this last November, Americans have managed to save over 1.31 trillion more dollars than they otherwise would have. So ask the question, who is it? And it's the people we were just talking about in that last segment, right? It's those people that had jobs, couldn't spend on the daily coffee, couldn't spend on. And I think this is presenting an opportunity. I think John Reed may be in a great position to do it. Super simple. They're selling their personal training, not as sessions, but specifically for certain uses. Long and Lean is one of their personal training packages. I think it's incredibly well thought out. We'll see how it works. $100 a month, no contract, cancel anytime. Go take a look at their website.
I love that it's immersive. The whole thing is like you walk in and you are out of yourself. You kind of can't think about work. You can't think about your kids. You're in there, and the artwork is outstanding. And it envelops you and it makes you really commit to that environment. And I think hopefully it'll commit to your fitness level and just make you feel better, because it's not just about physical fitness, it's about our wellness and our mental health, and anything that'll get us out of ourselves, I think is just fantastic.
I like the use of the word immersive, and it does feel decadent, and I think they've done an awesome job of making it feel that way.
I took the tour and I'm looking for the bar. That was my whole thing. I was like, where is the bar? And I'm not talking about any like smoothie with kale.
Right. Yeah. Well, Blair, you touched on it briefly and you shared some of the stats about savings, but if you listen to any of the financial experts talk about the market and the future of spending, they're all very bullish and about how aggressive the rebound is going to be as we continue down this road of recovery.
And that makes, so I wonder if you knew this was coming to fitness, like if you knew the Roaring '20s was coming to fitness, what would you do, right? Like, how do you position yourself to really take advantage of it and not just keep doing what you've been doing? Like, how do you do that?
Bill would say price optimization.
No, I would say experience, decadent experience. I like the word decadent, Blair.
Yeah, well, Bill, you bring up a great point, right? Like it is, I mean, Sara said immersive. It is all about the customer experience, and they're affecting that experience on a deeper level. It might not fit you, right? It might not fit me, but I bet you that whoever did all that design work can go to a whiteboard and say, here's who we're for, here's who we're against, right? I mean, if you drive a Ford, you're against Chevy. If you like Pepsi, you're against Coke, sort of, right? That's not quite that clean of lines, but they know who they're marketing to. I wish them the best.
And if you think about the programming that's coming up, like what kind of program are you going to do? Yeah. There used to be a class called Urban Striptease. There's, bar at the bar, I mean, they're coming up with new programming. And I think as owners and managers, we have to think of, let's be inventive. Let's create an experience. And if you don't have the money to get the artwork in, how could we do it in another way?
Well, it's you deserve to come here. You deserve to experience this. You deserve to belong here. It's not a chore. It's not a task. It's you deserve it.
Yeah. Good word. And Sara,
we're going to do a video of toss and take. What are we going to toss away and get rid of from the pandemic? And what are we going to take along with us? I really like this stuff. I like this stuff because it makes me think, okay, I'm getting, we're moving out. We're moving out of the pandemic. Of course, we all know we're going to keep virtual, and we're also going to move and make some things hybrid. So I think that's going to stick. Virtual meetups, Bill loves them. I kind of hate them, but we're going to keep those staff meetings and make sure that we have some virtual meetups. But you guys, we need business retreats. We need something like that. These small group training programs for 6 weeks, I've talked to multiple friends of mine that own boutique studios. They're kicking butt. And I don't mean just physically, I mean financially. So think about those small group 6 week, weight loss programs. Group X is going to come back with a bang. homework or office work. People are going to be working at home. People are going to be working at the office. Office is going to come back. We want to get out of our house. One-on-one or on-demand training, I think we're just going to have both. And for personal trainers, they never reduced their salaries, Bill. They never did. Pods or open function rooms. Oh my goodness. I get rid of the pods, get rid of them, rip the screens off, make it an open function room. Okay, some of us are going to want to wear masks. I get it. Cleanliness and sanitation, maybe sanitation is going to subside a little. Cleanliness is here to stay. Thank goodness. I hate going into a dirty gym. I hate getting down on a smelly floor. The recycling and the electrical units that create electricity, you know, those pieces of equipment, they're really cool, but they're really expensive. But I think they're gonna stay, because I just went to the mall the other day and they have all these electrical charging stations for cars. It's coming. Meal planning. I think people started cooking who never cooked. I think it's here to stay. Limited capacity or full capacity. I think we're going to have kind of a balance of both. It's going to be exclusive. I can charge a little bit more during this time period. Things like that. Outside training. Oh my goodness, bring the training inside, but give them the outdoor experience. And I think we talked about this. I think Bill and Blair both thought outside is here to stay. And I also want to see turf brought inside because I'm from Chicago and the weather sucks.
I totally.
Sara, you have not been honest with our audience today. You said you disagree with me on meetups. But you are one of the best meetups people with SCW. You guys have hosted happy hours for presenters. You've taken your whole live program and made it virtual with unbelievable success. So you're living the meetups. So I want you to restate your disagreement with me on the future of meetups, because I think you just like disagreeing with me personally.
It's a hobby. It's a hobby. But I do agree. Like, I love webinars. I love the back and forth. I've gotten to know people. We're going to keep our webinars. Oh, God.
Yeah, okay. Well, I would take that, ladies and gentlemen, as a recant of her previous statement. Blair, what were you going to add to that?
No, I think a couple of things in there, like get rid of the pods. Yeah, I mean, I think bars are going to be a bellwether measurement for when fitness is sort of, if people are comfortable, and think of your own customers. Not everybody that goes to a bar is a fitness client. But if you look across all your clients, I'll bet a huge percentage of your clients are bar customers. And so when people are comfortable going into bars without a mask and loud music and being close to each other, it's probably time to rip the pods down and take the masks off. And, I'll stop right there.
Well, one of the things I hope stays, and I know all of you would agree with me, is, or I'll say two things. One is just the general heightened awareness that society has around being physically active and building up your immunity system. And it's not even about maybe going to the gym, but just being physically active and managing your weight has gotten a lot of attention. It'll continue to get more. I hope that stays. And then also, to your point, Blair, when you were talking about the GYMS Act and all the legislation that's coming up, I hope our industry has learned our lesson that we've got to be politically active and have a voice and a seat at the table going into the future. And we don't forget that as we come out of the pandemic.
Great. Donate $100 to each candidate. It doesn't take much.
That's right. Well, Bill, I believe you've been jotting down furiously some notes through the whole thing. Can you give us a little bit of a wrap about what's been transpiring over the first 50 minutes or so here?
Yeah, I mean, we'll go through the list real quickly and then get some feedback from the group. Price, my advice is don't be afraid of price adjustments, but don't gouge your customers when they're down. Be very cognizant for the long-term play and transparent. Exercise protects. I love the 150 minutes with minimal efficacy to get benefits of exercise. Exercise protects us. COVID outbreaks are, on the decline, and we have to encourage people to get the vaccination, but be careful of how we tread with regard to mandating it. Chuck Runyon, industry advocate extraordinaire, love the concept of best vaccine is exercise and nutrition for the long haul. We all need to send that message out to every channel that we can. On the local stuff, you just said it, Blair, donate $100 each candidate, get involved, take advantage of IHRSA's resources and make sure your voice is heard. Meetups, we've kind of beat that down a little bit. I won't go much into that, but the virtual social productivity aspects versus the virtual programming. The gym access with occupancy rates in Class A office buildings in major cities, consumers working from home, there is going to be a shift. And so redo your likely joiner analysis, redo your feasibility studies before you do any major CapEx expansions. Go back and look at your market again with a fresh lens. The roaring 20s and the golden 20s, I love it, Blair. Sara, the immersive experience, the decadent experience, the you deserve this. I think we all can learn a lot about that. Our product is something that we should be proud of and people deserve. The toss and take, or toss or take, Sara, I think is great. You have to go through. There's been a lot thrown at us during this pandemic, and we have to evaluate what we're going to commit to, what makes sense with our core strategy and our core business offering, and stay true to our philosophies and so on. But we can't do it all. If you try to do everything, you'll be mediocre at best. Pick the top 2 or 3 things that you're great at and have good strategy, and replace things only with things that are better than the things you're currently working on. That's my summary there, Brent.
Well done, sir. I appreciate you doing that for us. We want to open up to the audience now for some questions. If anybody would like to pose some questions, the chat box is pretty active with some comments. I'll start with one. Cheryl says, insurance companies should help cover gym membership fees. Could not agree more. Let me just say, and that's a great segue to say that IHRSA has been working with other partners to pass the FIT Act for years, and it's back in the Senate again this year, and it's for that very purpose. It gives pre-tax dollars for gym membership, personal training, registered dietitian, et cetera. And then also kind of related to that, we're working right now with the insurance companies to develop CPT codes, which are billing codes specific for our industry and some of the services we offer. So yes, those things are great ideas, and they're going to be here hopefully in the not too distant future.
Hey, Brent, on that topic, we think back to the last few years, the years of trying to get the FIT Act passed in this Congress. It's a 2-year Congress, so there's a little bit of runway here. I think of some of the work of some of the people that have been before us through this, Jim Worthington, and Linda, and the work that they did on that. And now maybe coming on the heels of that great work, we have 91, that's why I want to call this out, why this is so freaking important. We have 91 co-sponsors on HR 890, where fitness is now top of mind for them. This is the kind of thing that helps get something, none of this stuff happens in a vacuum, right? It's the effort and the heavy lift on HR 890 that even if it doesn't go, it might trigger something else, because now these people are really cognizant of it. One more thing on that. The Republicans in our state that I've spoken to that aren't signing it. So we have 6 of 10 US representatives from the state of Washington. The Republicans that I've spoken to have said, I can't sign anything else now that sort of the stimulus bill has come through on reconciliation without a single Republican vote. Therefore, I can't do this. But I will tell you this, I am highly aware of the unique position your industry is put in, and I will carry that. I'm summarizing 3 conversations, and I will carry that with me into anything else we're dealing with. So that's why the HR 890 is a domino for a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, well said, Blair. I have a similar conversation with my local congressman here in Texas, virtually the same thing. I didn't sign the relief bill for the restaurants. I didn't sign the relief bill for the live venues. I'm not signing anything because of all that you've explained, but I'm in your corner for whatever's next. So yeah, we're making good progress. So another question, Bill, back to the price optimization. The question is, if you're considering membership price increase, do you suggest keeping it minimal?
Yeah, I think it's case by case. I think sometimes if you haven't done an increase in years and you've changed your capital expenditures and improved your club and you have more demand, based on less capacity or less demand or supply in your market, then you might be more aggressive. But some of this is a timing issue. It's too broad of a problem or opportunity to categorize as $2 or $3 is the right answer, $5 or $6 is the right answer. You have to look at legacy pricing. You have to look at the market conditions. I'd be glad to address that free of charge with the person asking the question if they want to contact me directly, so I can understand more about the logistics of
One of the things, Bill, you said in the wrap up was redo your likely joiner analysis, because that's one thing too. If your likely joiner is a completely different, wage and a different income level, maybe you have an opportunity. And I know some of the complexities that are going through your mind, Bill, are like, maybe it's just this much on the rack rate. One big customer we work with is experimenting with significant increases on the rack rate for new people and a small increase going backwards to existing members. Then there's also, how are your add-ons structured? Maybe that's a place. Maybe if you have 30% or add-ons at a lower price, maybe you can just get rid of that category altogether. There's some price increases that people really don't notice too. Yeah,
you can do incremental but I will tell you this, every price increase I've ever done in my career has been too low. I've always left money on the table.
I would probably concur with you, Bill, and I've raised prices almost every year and always could have gone a little further, not just on membership, but also on personal training and other ancillary services often. Good comment. Okay, here's another one. If you provide an online version to your gym, give online classes, is there a risk that members will stop coming to the gym? Have you noticed this? So are you cannibalizing your in-person attendance by offering it online? Sara, I'll let you start.
Yeah, no, you're not cannibalizing it at all. And frankly, a lot of gyms that have been charging separately for either the virtual classes or the on-demand classes that they offer, they're not really making that much revenue off their on-demand programs. It's really kind of a cost of doing business right now. You've got to have it because people want it, but it's not going to pick away at the live participation. And we had an experience back in 2019. We started at the end of the year doing a live streaming of our certification programs, and our certification instructors were like terrified. Nobody's going to come to the live version if you're filming it and selling it as live stream, even though the live stream was much cheaper. It literally doubled our attendance in the live version, and we still got a lot of people that were coming live because we were offering something and it looked new and it looked fresh. So it didn't pick away at the live participation. It actually enhanced it. I think there's a lot of people, I can't remember if it was, I think it was Bill that talked about people are shy. Some of them don't want to walk in your gym in leotard and tights or a big baggy t-shirt. They just don't want to walk in. But if they can try it virtually, get a little used to it, and then come in, I think it's a way to enhance our membership.
Well, we've done a lot of surveys. I say IHRSA has done a lot of surveys going back through the pandemic, and we've partnered with other of our federations around the world that have done surveys, like in Brazil and in Europe and other parts of the world. And consistently, they keep coming back to one of the things they value so much about what all of us are offering is that sense of community, sense of camaraderie, the support that you get. There's psychological studies that if you've got a big hill to climb and you look up and you're evaluating how difficult that's going to be, and you rate it on a scale of like 1 to 10, and I'm there by myself, I'll go, wow, that looks like that's going to be an 8. All it takes is to have Bill McBride standing beside me. I look at the same hill and I go, I think that's a 6. Right? There's this inherent sort of boost that we get working out with other people. Then they can't recreate that typically online in their home. So I think there's a big upside there for sure.
And I think a lot of people are scared. Oh my gosh, if I try something new, is this like I'm stuck with this forever? The video we did was toss or take. You know what? If it's working for about 3 weeks, if it's working for 3 months, keep it. But if you find that it really is not working for that 3 weeks, toss it, figure something else out, because we've been doing this for a whole year.
I got, and I'll pile on that real quick, because I think it's important to think about what you put in place in order to make the conditions around the pandemic a better experience, as opposed to what's post-pandemic. So we have a credit union here in Wenatchee, New America. And one of the things they did when capacity was limited in that, they actually put this giant TV right in the entry with a live person on that TV that could actually see you, and you would walk in and they would greet you. And if they knew you, they would say your name. Brent, what can I help you with today? And it's a big screen like this. Here's something about that. You're talking to somebody on a screen and they're not wearing a mask. So you can see their whole face and they can be expressive. And you'd say, well, I'm just going to deposit some checks. And they'd say, okay, here, go see so-and-so at, at whatever. They would vector you wherever they needed to vector you. Okay, post-pandemic. Is that still a great experience? Or what if I now took Joe, who was manning that desk in the back, and put him live right in front of you and greeted you live every time you came in? Tell me that's not a better experience. I think it's important to differentiate between, wow, that was a great experience. Some of it is literally because it was a pandemic, it was a better experience. But does it transfer once that goes away? And I think in 6-7 months, we're all going to look back and say, God, I can't believe we actually really worried that much about all the vaccines and masks.
Well, if Texas is any indicator, and my getting out this weekend and going around, all the mandates, as many of you know, have been lifted now for many weeks, it's returning back to normal pretty darn quickly. Not that people are still not being a little careful, but yeah, you get out in public and you're not going to see masks in the public spaces that are open. When you go into restaurants, businesses, health clubs, still requiring masks and so forth. But I don't think it's going to last long, to be honest.
Returning back to normal or returning back to the way it was before as Texas?
Well, we're going to have the convention and trade show here, and I'm going to expose hopefully a lot of people to the culture of Texas. Hopefully you'll enjoy it.
I love Texas.
Hi, Sara Kooperman here. Thank you so much for joining us for Talks and Takes. And we love your questions, but we don't always get to answer them during the show. So please put them in the chat box in the comments to this video, and we'll make sure to read them. Thanks again, and see you next month.
Want to thank everybody for joining us today and being on the call. Appreciate it very much. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for your time and attention through it all. We really appreciate it. We'll be back again next month. We'll get the message out and make sure those invites are there. Give us any feedback. If you haven't already, we've got a lot of comments in the chat box, and we really appreciate your time and attention. And to the panelists, great job, everyone. Awesome
Thanks,
to work
everybody.
with all of you again. I love these meetups online.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Bye all.
Bye-bye.